Over here to my left. Come on, give a round of applause. We're going to get 2 mics and we're going to, Jamie, if you'll just help us out with that. I appreciate all the volunteers, all the staff. Come on, look at these good looking people coming up here.
Yeah, amen.
And we need another seat for Miss Deja. There's an extra one over here. We'll help her out, please. And Brother Gary, come on, give Brother Gary a round of applause. He's coming over. He may need a seat too. Look at it. It's a good group. It's a good group of people. And everybody up here has either been single, is single. I'm not going to say wants to be single, but somebody up here has done, yeah, help her. Give her a chair. Thank you. Make it happen. Make it work. Whatever you need to do. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much. So my wife and I asked her to help me. We're going to talk a little bit. And we will kind of be what we call moderators. Because let's just be honest, I don't want anybody grabbing the mic and taking 30 minutes. All right? We cannot get your entire single story in the time we're here today. Some things actually need to be talked about in private anyway. All right? Disclaimer, as you answer questions, panel folks, please use wisdom. Know that you're in what setting you are in. We're not going to get, as somebody said, Pastor Steve, we're going to get raw? No. Nah, not like that. Especially not live. All right? So, let's get to it. And I think that these questions, and I want to give you some scriptures, because I know some people think if you don't read scriptures, then it's not holy. But I want to give you some scriptures. 1 Corinthians 7:32 and 35 says, this is Paul talking to church people. Thank you, media people. I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. And I'm going to explain this scripture, because some people are going to say, Pastor Steve said not get married. That's not what I said. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please the Lord. Okay? But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. Nothing wrong with that. And the word please, some of y'all nasty minds, that ain't what he's talking about. His interests are divided. In the same way, a woman who is no longer married or has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and in spirit. But a married woman has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. So, I'm saying this, Paul's saying this. I'm saying this for your benefit. And here's what you need to understand. Not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best with as few distractions as possible. There's distractions all over our world. That's the next one. We'll go to that one. Matthew 22:36 and 39 says this. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus, of course, said, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. And then he goes on to say, this is the first and the greatest commandment. And then after this, he says, love your neighbor as yourself. Key point here. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Very important when we're talking about single people. Oh, yeah. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Okay? So I'm going to start with these questions. And really I may call on some people specifically. The first question I'm going to ask you, babe. You want me to be first? What's your first thing? I like. All right, here we go. Growing up, make sure you use that mic, please. Everyone wants to hear you. I just want to look at you a little. Okay, all right. Growing up, what did you learn, see, or understand about single life, living single, and being single? What did you learn growing up about singleness? And if you're like me and you didn't really learn a whole lot, that's fine too. We're transparent here.
Just what you said earlier, where I grew up was if you're single, that means you're not married. That means that you're waiting for someone to come in your life, waiting for God to send someone in your life. That's what I was brought up with, and that's what I tried to live my life for until I got married, yes.
So being single is you're waiting for God to send you somebody. Anybody else, what did you learn about growing up, what it meant to be single? Because this could be interesting responses because we all have our own narratives of what it meant to be single. Anybody? Go ahead. Don't y'all be shy. Y'all like, I can't wait, Pastor Steve. Now here's your chance. Somebody share what? Oh, go ahead, Elder. Make sure that microphone's on. Come on. See, Elder don't. She ain't up for a while. She don't have to turn the mic on. All right. Go ahead, Elder. I love it. Go ahead.
I learned that you had to trust in God and be faithful. And that you were never alone because he was always with us.
Never alone, be faithful, trust in God. Anybody else?
I learned that being single, that's truly the best time to discover who you are.
Best time to discover who you are. Good point. Anybody else? Okay, so here's the thing. Everybody says something that I want to touch on just a little bit. And again, this is my experience, so don't leave here saying Pastor Steve doesn't like single people. I was single for 7 years of my adult life until my beautiful queen came. So we'll talk a little more about that probably. But it was like, and this is maybe just me, maybe if you didn't grow up in a traditional denomination, it almost was like if you were single at a certain age, something was wrong with you.
Uh-huh.
If you were 25 and not married yet, something must be wrong with you. Or if you were 35 and not married yet, you were really weird.
Yeah.
Because the narrative growing up for me was, the goal was to get married. That was the goal. The goal was to get married, have a wife, some kids, and even a dog. That was the goal. But in reality, it was almost like they said being single was like a plague. How could you be single? So I want to talk today about those things because that's how I felt growing up. It's like, what's wrong with you? And even sometimes mothers, don't get mad at me, mothers, but I would hear mothers say, I need some grandbabies. What you waiting on? The clock's ticking. I need some buns in the oven. And it would make, in my experience, it would make single people think, well, I've got to do this because mama needs it. Or I've got to do this to fit that narrative. Somebody talk a little bit about that if you've ever felt that way. Ladies, gentlemen, whoever, that it was almost like I got to a certain age and I was made to feel a certain type of way about being single. Anybody want to share anything about that? Go ahead, Elder Kareem. You've been single.
Well, I feel like that all the time with a lot of people, especially knowing that I am a 30-year-old virgin.
Yes. A movie. Hold on. Oh, it's 40 years. Oh, go ahead.
Someday we might make a movie.
No.
but yeah, I get that a lot of question of that. People keep on telling me, why you ain't got married yet? Why you ain't got girl yet? And so like that. I'll be telling them I like to take my time because I want to respect myself and respect the person who I'm with. And besides, no offense to me people, I don't want to get caught up in on child support.
You don't want to get caught up in child support. Now, let me ask this, and again, I've shared the questions basically with y'all, but some of these are going to be off the cuff. Anybody who has been married before that's up here, you don't have to if you don't want to. You feel like maybe you, in your life, you rushed into a relationship because of this narrative. I want to share on that.
Okay, I'll talk now.
Use it.
So a lot of this other stuff was kind of directed to single people that had not been married.
Right.
But you can also be married and still be single, actually feel single. Because a lot of times that's the way I was. I was married, made the mistake of getting pregnant first, and I was 20-something years old, so I almost waited too late to even have children to begin with. And I knew, I was a Christian, and I knew it was totally wrong. I waited till I was about 9 months pregnant before I even told anybody, and I thought that if I didn't say anything, it would go away. Well, it didn't. So sin will find you out, and definitely with pregnancy. But anyway, I got married thinking it was the right thing to do, and it was totally the wrong thing to do, because the one that I was going to marry was totally the wrong thing. The Lord told me that, but I did not wait on His time, and I done what I thought was right, doing the right thing, and was totally the wrong thing. So for anybody that is in that situation, do not make two mistakes, because that's what you'll be doing if you do that. And don't stay with a person that you think, and I may be going way off.
No, you're right on.
Do
This is
not
good.
stay with a person that you just because you have a child with them, because that is totally wrong, because that's what I did also. Until mine was just about grown, I tried to make a marriage work that was not working. And a lot of it was because he had so many problems bringing it into a relationship. And that goes back to, you find somebody that's actually a Christian person that has been brought up in a Christian home, even if they're not serving the Lord. If you're trying to do that, you find somebody that is actually trying to do that. Because that's exactly what happened to me. He was screwed up from the very beginning, and he tried to do what was right part of the time, but he had so many problems.
Wow.
And it kind of like that, and I was not like that. I was serving the Lord. I didn't want anybody to see that I was going through so much stuff. I come even to this church with my children, with my child, and actually put on this face covering up the bad relationship that I was in.
Wow.
I mean, and nobody knew that, even my family. I mean, I actually hid it from everybody because I was this Christian and I wanted to be perceived like that, and I didn't want to be that kind of person. I didn't want to be that statistic several times, so I didn't want to be that either. I knew what was right. I was brought to church. I went on my own. I was a Christian, and I wanted to be serving God. Well, then I made the mistake of getting pregnant, even though I'm married. Then I had, and God forbid, I'm not going to say that I do not regret having my children, but then Cameron came along. Well, I done the same thing. I tried to hide that pregnancy, and I knew struggle with that for so long. Am I okay with this? I mean, honestly,
Oh, yeah.
I'm speaking from the heart because somebody may need to hear this. Well, then I had the second. Then I got pregnant with Cameron. My husband wasn't even around at the time, and I'm going into labor, and he's off with somebody else. You know, that's, and I struggle with that. And my mom had to take me to the hospital. I didn't even care if he even came at that point. And they wanted to wait and let everybody else see they wanted me to wait till he got there for other people to see the baby. I said, well, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
He didn't come
Wow.
until later. Because like I said, I had to call, track him down, you know, for him to even come to the house. And this is my husband. So you can still be single and married. But anyway, then, and as I laid up in that hospital bed by myself, there were videos showing if you're in an abusive relationship, get out of. And I thought about that. You know, I almost told people then. You know, I was in a bad relationship in my marriage, but I kept trying to hide. You know, hoping that it was not. And I always chose bad people. And I'll say that I always chose bad guys, even though I was trying to live my Christian life.
Right now.
I always chose, if you hadn't been in prison or wasn't going to jail, I didn't want you. Kind of thing. That's what I said. I don't know what it is about bad boys with good
Come on
women,
now.
but it's the truth. That is the way they
Elder,
are.
I don't want to cut you off. But
I'm sorry.
This is great. I'm not cutting you off because you're on the wrong track. But I think that's something to expound on real quick. Is I understand, as she said, God never makes mistakes, but we do. And how does those? And I'm going to segue what she's saying. Has anybody made a mistake in dating a relationship that's up here that compounded the other mistake? It compounded the problem. She said something really key. You can be married but still be single.
Yeah.
And I want to stay there for a second. And anybody else, okay, babies aren't mistakes. God doesn't make mistakes. But we make mistakes. How has somebody else compounded that issue up in here? See, some of y'all learn stuff about people you never knew. You don't know people's story. Elder Downer looked like she had it all together her whole life.
Absolutely.
But you need to hear these things from people so you can relate and know that, hey, that's an example of how to make it. Had her second child, Cameron, who is now serving in this church in college, getting her degree, but the husband wasn't even there. So you're single but married. Anybody want to expound, or if you want to continue, Elder Donna?
That's good.
Anyway, go ahead, Cameron. Give Cameron that mic. Use the mic, Cameron. It's on. Use the mic.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that. I promise you, I was about to walk off stage. I am not very comfortable up here. But I don't really. Y'all probably say I talk a lot when I'm around, but my issue is choosing, and I know it's loud, so it's gonna get me in trouble. But choosing the wrong partner. It's like it was a rush thing. You wanted somebody to love. You got the first thing that you didn't think things out. So you didn't take things in consideration. Excuse me. But I have 4 kids with my kid's mother. We was together probably 8 years. But at the same time, I was still in high school, and I was in the 12th. I think she was in the 11th. We made some, I ain't gonna say our kids were mistakes. We made some choices I think we should have thought about and talked about before we did. But push come to shove, I just never seen a mother, as I'd say, run like Forrest Gump with my kids.
All right now.
But I just never thought I would be a single father of 4. And I mean, she come around, but sometimes it's like she's there but not there.
Yeah.
And it's like I have to do. It's hard for me my daughters to come to me and tell me, Dad, I'm on my period, because I ain't going to the store to buy pads. So most times I'm calling one of the elders, Elder Mitra at the most. She probably get tired of me, but I can't tell them about that stuff. I can talk to my boys, but I mean, it's stuff that I can't tell them. Yeah, she should be able to tell them, but she's never there. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
And Cameron actually just went into my second
That's
question.
good.
What is the hardest part for you right now, being single? I experienced that. Luckily, I had Miss Brenda and all those nieces. And even my wife, we've been, 5, 6 years we've been with this woman. But thank God she was in my life to help with those. So somebody else expound. I'm gonna ask you first, babe. When you were going through your single story, and what was the hardest thing for you in that?
I think the hardest thing for me was being a stereotype as a single mom and not knowing my story and just thinking that I just got caught up pregnant and then the guy left and not knowing what really happened. And for example, just having Colin in school and I know about school systems and how they treat kids because I've been in it for a long time. And just having your last name different from your child's last name, they already stereotype you from that first day in school. So that's why I didn't change. I wanted to change my last name for sure, but I didn't because I didn't want my child to be stereotyped for being in a single parent home and the dad is not there. So I think that was the hardest thing for me. But being single, it's hard, but it strengthened me. I did things that I thought that I would never, be able to do, and I couldn't did it if I wasn't single.
And if you want to, and if anything I say, you give me that look. But a lot of people, and it's even been said, don't really know Lady Lindsay's story. Single. How many jobs did you have at one time?
Three.
And how did you have to do that? And I'm not saying nobody else has had any struggles, but I'm just saying sometimes we need to remember that, again, while it looks good, the strength that we build in these moments are vital to your success. You would take Colin to school,
Yes.
pick him up,
Yes.
take a nap in the car,
Yes.
go to your second job,
Yes.
then go to another job.
Yes. I tutored at night.
And it would still take Colin to places to have experiences, not having any money, not having, to take him to certain places so he would be able to have experiences that he deserved. So going back to single and strengthened, singleness is the best time, I believe, in our life. You have to go through hard times, but to be strengthened. And anybody else want to share some of the struggles? I'm going to ask you, Deja. You're a single mom of 2 wide open boys. Just share a little bit of your single story and anything else you want to add.
Being single,
Turn the mic on, please.
being single, you have to trust God's timing. Of course, being single, you have the urge of wanting that companionship with someone, but you have to lean into growth while you're single. While you're single, you learn more about yourself. And for me personally, I found myself growing more, walking more into my purpose. Things that I didn't know that I could do, I ended up doing just by leaning on God, asking for His direction and His plan for my life. And when I look back, I don't think I had the strength when I was in a relationship to even go that route, to put all that trust in God to do that. And I want to say that was more like a distraction, because a relationship can be a distraction, and that's when you have to go in your prayer closet or just a long time. Even though you're in a relationship, you're still a single person, still an individual. So you have to, have that relationship with God in your own time too, along with your spouse.
Brother Gary, I'm going to go to Brother Gary down there. Brother Gary, you've been married, single.
Right. I get it.
Get your microphones on, sir. I want you to just share a little bit of your story and what all the wisdom you've gleaned.
Oh my goodness, it would take years. Come on. I just want to say first that I'm just glad to be here.
Yes, sir.
Surrounded by people that I can look at and feel good myself. Now the marriage, together for years with
Use that mic, Brother Gary.
same lady. I stayed in a relationship because of my kids. My kid at the time. See, I had 2 before I got married. Now, I can say this about my wife, and I still call her my wife because that's the only woman I've ever married. Not that we've not moved on. But these things that I had to learn because it's not all about me.
Wow.
Okay, in a relationship and in a marriage, then you got two people that started, and if you have kids, all of this works together. And that's when you're saying, hey, you're single no more. Okay. All right. And so I had to learn to love my kids, but I loved them anyway. Altogether, that didn't have anything to do with me leaving home. I had a lot of things going on in my life, and I thought of self first.
Wow.
That was my, I would say, downfall, because I wasn't able at the time. I was 23 years old and wasn't finished with me.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so and that's another thing. You
Yeah.
can say, hey, getting into a situation too early. My grandmother, I can remember my grandmother telling me, and I was just fresh out of college, you too young to get married. But no, but Marcus was coming along at the time.
All right now.
I made up my mind that he was not going to be born not having a father that he could say, this is dad, too, and this is my mom, and have us all together.
Wow.
And that worked. And then another one came along, my daughter. And we stayed together, I guess, another 5 years, I would say. And but one thing I never did do, and that was leave my kids.
Yeah.
And it's been 30 years. And right now we stay the length of this church and a little bit more from each other still. And we all still love each other.
Come on.
Okay? Because sometimes divorce is not the end of the relationship. Because mine still grew. Even though we weren't married.
That's right.
That's rare. People say, now, y'all get along so good. Oh, that's fine. Okay, there's a lot involved there. Okay, but you have to keep living.
That's right.
Okay, no matter where the relationship goes, but when, like I say, when other people in it are involved, then the main thing to do is to take care of your own.
That's good. That's really good. Thank
Very
you, Brother Gary. Give a round of applause. I'm going to go on to the next question. This is good. We're going to ask Miss Crystal if you want to expound on this one a little bit.
good.
What do you find is the hardest part of being single?
You know, from the very beginning of the questions, it seems like it almost doesn't apply to me because y'all were talking about what you've seen as being single and the single life. I don't know what a healthy marriage looks like, really. I grew up in a single family. My mother raised me as a single woman that worked all the time, and so she was gone, and I was here, and you understand, some of everywhere, you know. So I didn't, even though I took myself to church, I didn't come from a family that went to church. I took myself and fell in love with Jesus very young in my life and tried to serve him and live for him. And the first time I got married just to leave home, you know, because it seemed like my mom was a wonderful, or is a wonderful woman, but she went into one relationship after the other that was abusive, one right after the other. You know, she didn't know what a healthy marriage looked like. She didn't know how to love herself enough not to be in a relationship with a bad boy. And so therefore I didn't either. Even though I was a child of God and loved God, I still ended up with that bad boy. You know, the first marriage was a wonderful man. We're best friends till the day. I know what you're talking about. Even though the marriage is over, he was still my best friend and a wonderful father. He was a good man, but I was 15 years old when I got married. I knew nothing about marriage, what a healthy marriage looked like, and you know, and then I married the second time, and I tried hard to make it work. And you can't make it work for a child, you know, because you have that child together, and you know. But at the same time, I was unequally yoked. If you're unequally yoked, it's never going to work because one's going to take the other. Either he's going to win you or vice versa. Either you're going to win them over to the Lord, or they're going to take you out of the will of God. One or the other. And so I was unequally yoked the second time around, and it was a struggle, and I tried, you know. And then there was another bad boy, and I fought for 10 years to save that relationship. I've been handcuffed, went to sit in front of the magistrate, the same magistrate that's been here to speak before, and I'm in the background. You know, and, you know, it's so embarrassing that some of the things that I've been through, knowing that I'm a child of God and know better. A lot of it, you know, but like I said, I fought for a relationship that wasn't going to work. And if I'd prayed hard enough about it, I'd known that it wasn't the will of God for me to be in that relationship. It was never going to work. No matter how much I cried or tried or prayed, it wasn't going to work because that wasn't who God had for me. You know, and so now I am happily single. I want to serve God and love my family, and I'm very happy, the happiest I've ever been, being single, and being happy just being by myself and loving my family, my children, my grandchildren, and trying to serve God. And I have no desire in my heart right now to be with anybody, and I don't know that I ever will. You know, after some of the things that I've been through in the past, I don't know what God's got in store for me. You know, who knows 5-10 years down the road, you know. But right now, I am so happy being single. And I'm thankful for what God's taught me along the way. I'm thankful for the married couples in this church.
Yes, ma'am.
You'd be surprised, even at my age, that y'all have taught me what a loving Christian marriage looks like.
Wow.
You know.
I think, yeah, come on, you can clap. Good stuff. Good stuff. She said something, and I want to make sure we understand. Not everybody is meant to be married.
Come on, Pastor. Come on, Willie.
And not everybody is meant to be single.
That's right.
And we need to understand biblically. I know that we grew up with this Leave It to Beaver, Brady Bunch mentality, or George Jefferson. We grew up with this mentality that that's how the family was supposed to look. But not everybody is meant to be married. Paul and Jesus were never married. So when somebody tells you got to get married, well, Jesus never got married, and the Apostle Paul never got married. He wrote half the New Testament. All right, all the epistles to the church. I think we have to understand. Again, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, because you need to ask God, you need to seek God, and make sure you don't get a bad boy, right? But you need to know that it may be that you're not supposed to be. I was, at 7 years, I was resolved. Okay, God, may not be what I thought it was going to be, but I'm okay. I'm good. I'm going to ask you a question next, Jason. I'm good. But then God, in his timing, out of nowhere, sent my beautiful wife. So I think Miss Crystal said something so profound. We've got to stay in his timing.
Yes.
Always.
Good.
And like somebody said, you know, don't get married just to have a baby. Sometimes, again, because, and my wife said it, especially, you know, in the world, a lot of times the African Americans, young ladies, and Lee, I'm going to ask you this one, who have babies out of wedlock, it's almost like you have a plague. It's very much stereotypical, because I see the same thing happen to a lot of young white women, and they celebrate. I'm just going to be frank with you. I'll be real. I see young ladies who get pregnant out of wedlock, and it was an accident, but they're, oh, I'm going to be a grandmama. But when a young African-American woman gets pregnant, oh, here's another one.
Come on.
Here's another statistic. Here's another baby the government will have to take care of. So we've got to be smart enough and seek God enough to know that we have a plan, and he has a plan, but we can't fall into those stereotypes because we made a mistake.
Good.
God doesn't make them, but then we compound them. We compound them by making, because I got to get married because I don't want the world to say anything bad about me. The world's going to say something bad about you, whether you're single or married, divorced, widowed.
That's true.
So we've got to seek God, and that's why I'm going to ask you, Jason, the same question I just asked Miss Crystal. What what is it like for you right now? What is the hardest part for you right now, being single? Use that microphone.
I guess companionship would really be the hardest part. Wanting the companionship, but then at the same time, for 17 years of my adult life, I had a problem. You know, I was the bad boy. You know, I mean, that's what I was going to ask you a minute ago. What if you were the person that contributed to Elder Donna's problem? You know, what if I was that person? So for 17 years, I had no idea who I was.
And real quick, for those who don't know, Jason was addicted to drugs for 17 years.
Yeah.
God restored him, still, and blessed his life. Come on, you can celebrate that.
I don't. So what I learned 4 years ago was I didn't even know who I was. So how can I offer anybody anything if I don't know who I am?
Wow.
You know, I knew God had a calling on my life when I was younger. I stepped in that calling and then I walked away from him, turned my back straight on him. And I do believe that you turn away from God. God doesn't turn away from you, because it's only because of him that I'm still sitting here.
Right.
Wow.
You know, and to me today, I had to learn how to be in a relationship, not only with God, but with me. I had to learn to love who I am now. So if I can't learn to love who I am, how can I love you?
Right.
I mean, and, you know, and the whole time I've been sitting here listening to everybody, I mean, I don't mean to jump subject or anything like that, but I'm not alone. You know, I for once in my life, I have a true relationship with a God that I've never known in all my life.
Wow.
And so, because I grew up in that you were going to hell for everything you did.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I might as well go out with a bang, you know, and, you know, that's not the God I know today. So actually for me, being single, I'm perfectly content with it now.
Right.
You know, 4 years ago, I wanted the companionship, and I struggled with that big time. And God said, you do have companionship.
Wow.
I am your companionship. That's a hard thing to like really grasp
Yes,
and
sir.
hold on to when you don't know who you are.
Right.
And then you're asking God for direction. Because for 17 years I had no direction. So, I mean, so now today, I'm fine with who I am. I'm fine with where I am. And sometimes I think, well, maybe I'm just meant to be single. You know, because, you know, and I've dated a couple. You've met one of them, okay? And it was so funny because when you brought this up, when you asked me to be part of this, I'm single, but I'm not silly. I'm not going to settle for anybody.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Okay? We live in a world today where people, it's hard to find someone who loves God the way I do.
Right.
It's hard to find someone who, you know what I mean? I don't drink and stuff anymore, so there's no going to bars. That's not the place to meet a woman anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and
You're a bad boy.
so what? That's right. Unless I want a bad girl. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah. Let's keep going.
Okay, so I mean, but seriously, to me, it's a faith walk now. Okay, God, if you want me to have someone, I'm gonna cross paths with that person. Okay, and I'm okay if I don't.
Let me expound real quick on that because I don't want to lose my thought. What he just said, Brother Gary said, amen. I think the hardest thing when you're single is that lack of companionship.
Uh-huh.
To me, at 7 years, I had my family. I was still living with my parents, so I had my entire family around. But I'm just telling you, in my experience, there was nothing worse to me, Elder Ray, than being the third wheel.
Yeah.
Because I'd go out and have a good time, but then everybody else, and then the enemy starts working on you, and you see couples together with their children. They're all laughing, having a good time, and here I am with Kevin and Marina, who I love dearly. But I did that when they were dating. And now here I am 40, and I'm hanging out with them, going on their dates. So that companionship, and then I want to flip that also, and you combine that companionship with temptation. Oh, y'all don't want to talk about that, did you? I don't care who you are flesh. I'm going to get back to you, I'm sorry. Well, you are flesh, so you have temptation. And let's be honest, you have temptation sexually. Oh, y'all make me so sick when you get so quiet. Forget where you go to church at. Jesus, God said, be fruitful and multiply. So we are human. We have urges and temptations. I'm not going to get too raw, Cameron. But we have urges and temptations. So you don't have a companion, and then you... Oh, help me here, Lord. I was going to term a sermon called Help Me, I'm Horny, but we won't go there. But we are human, and we have temptations. And when you need a companion, you have temptations, sometimes you'll step out of your normal. I'm sorry, I thought I was at my church. You'll jump out of your normal to go get something temporarily that will only make it worse where you're at. Because we're tempted. We're tempted. And ladies, no disrespect, because men are men, and men think, hey, I'm going to get me a woman. But ladies, it's a soul thing more. That when I give myself to a person, most ladies, now there's exceptions to every rule. There's some Jezebels all around. But when I give and Jezebels can be men too, because it's a spirit, not a person. But that's a whole other sermon series. But when I give myself to a person, I give part of myself. And when you're single, I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I feel this thing. When you're single and tempted, you burn with lust. Bible talks about these things, so my wife's probably turning red. You burn with lust, you get tempted. And it's hard when you already don't have a companion. And those urges come because you are a person. So you want to fill those urges. Then you wind up sometimes, as somebody said, with the child that you didn't plan for because you were horny.
That's where the marriage thing comes in, because the Bible says that. You know, you burn within.
That's it. It's better for you to marry, the Bible says, than to burn with lust. And on the flip side, if you burn with lust when you're not married, if you don't get it right, you'll burn with lust when you are married and step outside the marriage. Wow. That's why we're talking about being whole and as a single person is so those temptations don't overtake us. And I want to say something. I know we may have some young gators in here. I'm going back to you, Jason. I forgot you. But anybody can be fooled for a short period of time.
That's right.
And that was the biggest fear that I had with my nieces. And I don't even want to talk about my daughter. She's 15. Lord, I will kill some. Anyway, is that they won't be caught up in something temporarily for a short time. Because people, bad boys, or whoever, know what to say. Especially if somebody's vulnerable, know what to say to make them. So some people get in a hurry to get married. And in my denomination, people get married because they want to have sex. Look at y'all. We came to church, we dressed good, but we were at church camp. We had to go, the boys had to swim with the boys, and the girls swam with the girls. You weren't allowed to mix bathe, they called it. Mixed bathe. How dumb is that, mixed bathing? We weren't naked. I'm going somewhere. So we were burning so much as young men with lust that we would sneak out of the dorm and meet in the woods. And we weren't having Bible study. Not me, of course. But, so, I say that to go back to my train of thought. If we're not content with who we are in Christ, we'll listen to anybody's sales pitch. Wow. And single people who need companionship and who have those urges and those lusts, we will listen to anybody's sales pitch just because we want something and you want to be in the right parameters. That's right. That's right. I'm going to get married so I can do this, God, and not feel bad about it. Then you bring kids into a relationship that you came into not whole by yourself, and then the whole marriage is jacked up because you were burning with lust, so you decided to get married to somebody you didn't even know their middle name. And you thought you did it right by the way you were taught. That's how the church said do it. That's how the church said. My church, they didn't say it, but in a lot of churches, you had to be married, have a kid, and you had to have a spouse that looked like you in the same color skin. Oh, yeah. So in a lot of ways, I messed it all up in the world's eyes. And I'm going back to Jason. I want to go to Leah. This is good, by the way. I hope you're getting, whether you're married or not, this is good stuff. You need to teach your kids this stuff because they're not in here today. They need to know this stuff. They don't need to jump into bed with anybody. They need to know how to be whole by themselves, because as somebody said, I don't want child support yet. That ain't a bad goal. That ain't a bad flag to throw up when you don't want to get in trouble. Elder Kareem's still a virgin. That's one of the reasons. Whatever it takes. But, that's Tim, am I all right? Because you looking at me like I'm out way. I yield to you always. If I'm saying something, cut the camera. But I think this is where we lack as people now in this generation. We don't have it all together. And until we understand that we've got to get it together as a person by ourselves, then the divorce rate in even Christian marriages will go down. Because we get married because that's what we're supposed to do. Have a baby because that's what we're supposed to do. So I'm going to go back to that. We can't let the lack of companionship, because I've been there 7 years. And to be quite honest, some of the reason I didn't even date in those 7 years is because of some of y'all. Because whoever dates me gets all y'all. See, there's more to this than just jumping in a relationship. Whoever dates me, my daughter has to like. I don't want to throw somebody in a relationship with crazy church folk. I know y'all are never crazy. See how this works? That's why you have to be whole by yourself. I don't want to take all the time today, but this is good. You have to be whole by yourself, because when you bring somebody else into a relationship with you, they get everything you have. All y'all she got. She inherited all y'all and all the Adamses. That's 2 crazy things in one batch. And she inherited that. So that's why you didn't see your pastor dating a lot. That was on purpose. I wanted to. I had lust. Oh. I had desires. I saw women. None like her, of course. But I had to be secure in myself, as you just said, so I wouldn't jump into something and damage not only my life, my anointing, but everybody in this room.
That's right. That's right.
I didn't worry about going out saying, your pastor dating everybody. He a gigolo. See how important it is? This is good. I'm getting anointed about my own stuff. This is how you have to be secure with yourself.
That's right.
Because then if you're secure with yourself, you'll know that what you normally look for is not what you need sometimes.
That's right.
God sent me this beautiful, quiet Coco Queen. I'm crazy. But God knew I didn't need crazy anymore. I needed love from somebody who was real. Jason, I want you to finish your thought, and then I got a couple more questions. We're doing good. We're doing good on time. All right? We're doing good. This is good. We don't do stuff like this often, but we need to. All right, go ahead, Jason.
I want to go back to settling for somebody. Finding somebody, and going back to finding somebody to love God, that's not the world it seems like that's not the world we live in anymore. People that serve God, sometimes we're hard to find. So, again, it's going back, I'm not going to settle for anything, you know. I don't want to say expectations, but I definitely, it's definitely, I have a heart for God, and the person I meet is going to have a heart for God, or we're never going to work. You know, you just said something about, you know, I don't want anybody that's going to cause me to fall back into where I came from. You know what? I'm not going to forget where I came from, because I never want to experience that pain anymore. Okay? And I was just talking to my mom about this the other day, and I said, you know what? If I have to spend the rest of my life single, just to stay on the right track with God, then you're looking at somebody who's going to be single for the rest of their life.
I think that's a key point. That goes back to being whole. I'm going to go to Leah, then I'll come back to you, okay? Go and being whole in yourself. You got to be whole here. If not, you'll let people punch holes in you, literally, in your spiritual life and in your personal life. Aaliyah, I want to ask you this question. If you want to share anything else, you can. But being single sometimes, if you're not careful, the enemy can do this. I'm going to ask you, Aaliyah, and if this doesn't apply, you can answer it. Just talk. Do you ever feel like while you're single, or if you're single, that you feel hurt by God because you can't find somebody? Or left out when you were single? I just said that was the third wheel. Sometimes I would say, God, what's the problem? Well, what's the problem? Not that I'm Brad Pitt, or Idris Elba, or Michael B., or Roman Reigns. See, I'm naming all people she would leave me for. Anyway, I would ask God, what's the problem? I got a beautiful daughter, I got a good church. What's the problem, God? And I would ask him, why? Why are you making me wait? See, that's how we barter with God. Why are you doing this, God? And God probably wants to say, because you ain't ready. Yeah. And you ain't right. So, Leah, go ahead and just anything else you want to share, and then we'll piggyback.
I think so. I think I probably, thought maybe God was saying something was wrong with me, or, I wasn't good enough at the time to find somebody, or maybe he was just wanting me to wait a little bit longer because, I still need to work on myself. But piggybacking off of what Lady Lindsay was saying, being single was hard, having a daughter and having 2 jobs at one point as well, to having to go and send her to my mom's and just to make ends meet, or just having to handle everything by myself. Like, I'm at work, where I have to leave work to go take her to the dentist or the doctor, Allow me to know that, my kids do come first, and whoever I am with, has to know that, or not trying to stay with someone because I have a kid with them, or I think it was me realizing like I can't change people as much as I want to, as much as I want them to be what I want them to be, it just won't work. So it's like, at some point I just kind of have to like push myself away, or know like, okay, well, I'm going down the wrong path. Like, my daughter's dad, I was there, trying to be there, trying to make sure he was around, and after a while, I was just like, okay, well, I have to focus on myself, focus on my daughter and her well-being, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. So I feel like me being single, it did me justice. I was, coming to church, and I just always kept coming to church because I knew, I felt alone, but I knew I wasn't alone, but I still felt alone, but.
Good.
Good, very good.
I was just gonna add that,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
It happens okay.
Good.
Y'all okay? We can go just a few more minutes?
Yeah.
I hope so. We don't have church tonight. Go on.
I was just gonna add that I also felt kind of hurt by God and questioning Him. Whenever I got married, first I saved myself for marriage, so I did that, and I then got married and then had Colin, and got divorced and was single again. So I didn't understand what I did wrong. I feel like I did something wrong, and I thought I was doing the right thing. So I also felt kind of hurt, or I questioned.
Wow.
Right. And that's the enemy saying, look, you failed. You failed. Because in 2010, when my first marriage all went to hell, I thought I had everything together. I thought I was good. I thought everything was good. I married a young lady. She was young, very young. So, but I wanted to feel that narrative a little bit of not being single as a pastor. Not saying that's why I got married, because I ain't crazy. But I think sometimes we rush into situations thinking that we're going to fix the situation when we get in it. That makes sense? And even my wife and I here, when we got married, she would tell me things that we need to work on with the family unit before we got married. And I was like, nah, it's all going to be fine. It'll all work itself out. Nothing's wrong, nothing's broken. But we brought in 2 children that, when they were little, they were like BFFs. And now as they're getting older, they still love each other, but they're teenagers.
Yes.
But my rationale, because again, my family's my family, and everybody just talks at the same time, especially if Hillary's around, you can't get a word in. But I just naturally thought that would blend, didn't I? I said, it'll be fine. And we're still navigating. She said, no, we need to work on that. But I'm stubborn like my dad. So anyway, sorry, Pastor. We're still navigating some of those things, because sometimes the problem is that it's not that you're not in the right place, it's that you're rushing the right. Timing is everything. When you're single, married, anything, timing is everything. So I got 2 more questions. I know, Kareem, I think you have a thought, and I want you to add your thought.
I want to piggyback what you said earlier about urging and everything, because one person actually did a question. At me and virgin, do you have urges? I told him yes.
Absolutely. You're a man.
I have urges. I see things on the internet. I see things everywhere I go. But how I handle that urges is something that I gotta go with God. And it's a lot of time I go to God is sometimes feeling down like, God, why I still single? Here we go again. Here is Valentine's Day, still single. Christmas, single. New Year's Eve, see people kissing something at 12 o'clock, still single. I like, why I still single? And a lot of times God be teaching me, and God be talking to me, and God be guiding me. I try to build you as a husband.
That's good.
Let me build you a husband so I can take you to your wife.
Wow, that's good.
Wow.
And that's what God been doing to me, because the main reason why I am worried, because I want a wife. I don't want no girlfriend.
I know
don't
that's
want
right.
I don't want no side piece.
Oh.
I want a wife. And for me, yeah, go ahead. And for me, taking care of my mother as an example, also teach me a little bit how I need to take care of a woman. Because when you take care of your mother, imagine how you can take care of your wife. It'd be double the time better.
Right.
So even though sometimes I be down and everything, God still be teaching me. Do I? And then on the parts where I am single and everything, yes, I do fall into sin and go to those sites that I should be going to. So, but it's a crazy urgent. No urgent will. That's the reason why. David looking over the window at a pervert watching Bathsheba. That was that urge right there. So as for me, I'm trying to be a great example of my peers and my family that this is the route that y'all need to go. And y'all do it this way, you will live your life a little better.
That's good. That's good. Very good. Hey, you wanted to get raw? Hey, you got some promise for you. That one close to you. Click that one closer. All right. So I got two more questions. I'm gonna go to Deja here, Deja. Right now, and if you don't, of course, if you're up here, any of this stuff you don't want to share, you don't have to.
Right.
There's no obligation. You know, I don't want you to not be at church because I asked you a question. All right. Deja, what right now is your dating life like? Are you searching for that person?
I am not physically searching. I want to be found.
Oh, wow.
So I don't go out.
Hey, hold on. Clap for that right there. That's what I'm talking about. Turn the lights off, close the door. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm just focusing on me, growing and developing in areas, trusting God, because He knows what I've been through. He knows what I need, and I believe that whoever He has for me, we will cross paths at some point in His timing. So that's why I'm not physically looking. I don't give in to
DMs?
Yeah, pretty much. DMs or being out in grocery stores or whatever. I just feel like God will put it on my heart. If I would know.
For you single folks or older, seasoned folks, DM means direct message. People hop in your inbox. And they say, hey, how you doing? Really, they're saying, hey, can we hook up? All right, go ahead.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I've been single for 3 years. I was married for 7 years. So since my divorce, I've been single. So yeah, I'm where I'm at right now. I'm good.
Have there been dates in that 3-year period? Again, you don't have to share. I'm not going to ask you who it was or where you went or who did he pay or you pay. I'm not asking you that.
The most recent one was yesterday.
Oh.
So yeah, that was the first date since
How'd that go?
3 years. So
How'd it go big?
yeah, it went good. Yeah.
You let us know if it don't. We'll find out who it is and we'll take care of it.
I'm going prayer on that, though. Like I said, it may go good, but it's not necessarily me. That's what I need to be with.
That's right there is a key point. It went well, but it may not necessarily be who it needs to be. Single people, do not go on one date and think you found it. You've got to invest time, energy, and how people treat your family. We can't live in this superficial world where, oh, he treated me good, he paid for the meal, we hooking up. He might have just got his tax, might not even have a job, he might have got fired. Learn each other, share each other. And Jason said, we've got to know if this is spiritually sound. Growing up, it didn't matter if it was spirit, it was just attraction. The attraction was physical, and we work on the spiritual. No, it's got to be spiritual. Now, you need to have physical, if it ain't physical, then you lying. Oh, the spirit drew me to them. It wasn't their looks. Yeah, right, okay. All right, yeah, okay. It was her looks that drew me to her, first and foremost, Elder Renee. And then her spirit matched up. So, all right, anybody want to share on that? What's your dating life like right now? Don't name names, Jason.
This goes back to talking with my mom. If that person is not the person to take you, to help you go to the next level, that person is not for you. If that person is holding you back, so that just goes back to the last two that I've been with. They were holding me back. I wasn't going for, since I cut the last one loose, I've jolted forward. Well, I'm just saying, I had to, why you look at me like that?
Took that pocket knife out and said, all right, go ahead.
But, I mean, sometimes you do have to cut ties.
All right.
I mean, when somebody's not good for you, somebody's not good for you.
Anybody else? Your dating scenario right now. Go ahead, Cam. Let me find out.
You got no dating life, I'll tell you that, because I work too much. But, I just like to be at peace. And sometimes I come to the church and I'm at peace, because when you ask me to do something, that's why I be so quick to come, because I like peace. I want to come and go as I will, and I don't want no attachments, because I feel like the wrong attachments is not going to be good for me, because I'm a giver. I'm sorry. And I'm getting in trouble. My baby mama, she likes my pockets. For some reason, I'm being honest. For some reason, I'm a giver, so I don't know how to tell people no. So she might, hey, let me get this. I just feel like relationships, some women, if you get the wrong one, they're going to want money only, they ain't going to want nothing else. And no offense and no disrespect, you told me not to get wrong, but I stay quiet too long. I ain't paying for sex. One thing I ain't finna do. But I stay single the rest of my life before I pay for some sex. But, and I ain't saying it to be saying it, because I don't have some, and Kat can verify one, I don't have, look, she said, she knew it was wrong and she was my boss over there at Rose's.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to give this story, I'm going to shut up. I was talking to a girl, we was working together at Rose's, and she going to kill me later. But, and the lady, the girl was good. We went to the house, we watched movies, my house, and it was all about money. I mean, she wanted money, she just seen the easy way out. So of course, a few days, nothing ever came. But like I said, I just feel like some women in it for the money, and until I find the one gonna accept my package, because I come fully packaged, and I got 4 kids, so if you can't accept them, then you can't be with me. Because, like I said, and they're gonna tell me if they're gonna tell me if they like me or not too. My girls are open-minded and they are very, what's the word, opinionated.
Right. That's good. Getting ready to wrap up. I'm going to ask everybody to answer this last question in a few statements in just a minute. But very, very key point, single people. You've got to bring, if you've been dating somebody and you don't bring them around your family and your kids, it ain't going to just happen. Like, oh, it's all going to work out. You got to bring them around your family. And my family ain't never going to like them because they wanted me to stay with Susie. I ain't saying your family's going to always like them. But if you are ashamed or afraid to bring your people around your family, then you are not whole by yourself. Because you've got to be able to bring people around where you go. If not, it's always eggshells and it's always fussing and fighting. Y'all don't come to the family reunions because you won't even speak to my wife. I'm not talking my family. They speak to everybody. You've got to make sure you're whole. So as Cameron says something, if not, you'll get attached to something. And if you're not careful, attachments can become soul ties, which is a whole other sermon. And when you got a soul tie, it is difficult to break those things if it's wrong. Generational stuff can attach. You've got to be careful what you attach yourself to, especially as a single person. Not just child support, but you are with that person for the long haul, even if you don't stay with that person. My ex-wife and I will always have a relationship because we have a daughter together. So be careful what you attach yourself to as a single person, because those attachments don't go away. They will always be there. So anything you want to add? Anything else there? Let me ask, they're going to go around and I'm going to give 4 quick points and we'll be out here, okay? I promise you, my watch says 11:30. 11:30. We're doing good on time. I got a whole another hour, 11:30. Just kidding. Y'all get out to go to Wendy's. All right, I'll start with Deja. Deja, in your opinion, on the journey you're on as a single person, what is one thing you've learned and one piece of advice you can give to single people on their journey? Start with Deja and work our way around to the fellas. What have you learned, one thing, and then one piece of advice you can give to single folk?
The advice would be to learn yourself, become whole within yourself before you try to interact with someone else or become in relationship with someone else.
What have you learned? One thing you've learned, you may have already shared it, so if you already answered, that's fine. But you said love yourself was a piece of advice. And that goes back to a scripture we read in Matthew. Love your neighbor as yourself. You can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself.
So stand firm on what you believe.
Don't compromise.
Yeah, don't compromise on what you believe, and your morals do not change that. For no one.
Come on. Don't compromise. That was one thing I was going to share before we left. It says, I wrote this down, there is a fear that we cannot get the best person for us and keep our godly standards. So we will compromise to get somebody instead of God's person.
Yeah.
That goes back to those temptations. I'm going to do it right, but I just need something. So don't compromise. If you're looking for ladies, I wrote this down. If you're looking for find Mr. Right, not Mr. Right now. Not this season's fad or fashion. Find Mr. Right. All right, Miss Kristen.
Probably it's going to be about the same thing. You know, seek God first and make sure that your life lines up with the will of God, and you're rooted in a good church, and you're seeking God and trying to do God's will before you try to get involved with anybody else. Because me personally, you know, I don't think in any relationship that I've entered into, I wasn't ready for not the first one, and not near one of them, you know. And so, you know, you really got to make sure things line up with you. And I'm not saying that I wasn't trying to serve God over the years, but I didn't seek God to ask God if that was the person for me. I didn't ask God first. You know, I saw something I liked and what I wanted. And that's what I was looking for, is what I wanted, somebody that I liked, you know, somebody that did something for me, you know. And I didn't ask God, you know, God, is this who you want me to be with? You know, and if you'll ask God those things, He'll tell you. If you've been in church and served Him and know Him, you know that He will answer you. And, you know, I always thought, okay, it's what I want, what I like, so that's good enough. That's not good enough, you know. And I've learned the hard way, you know. I've been through some things I shouldn't have. My family has been through things that they should not have had to have been through because of the people or the men that I chose to be with, you know. And my children have suffered in ways that my heart still breaks over. So really make sure, try to seek God first, and make sure that that person that you're with is helping you serve God and live for God, and not, like Jason said, pulling you back and making you less than what God wants you to be.
That's very good. Come on, clap. So far, the two closing comments they've had are everything my first closing point was. She said something that I wrote down: don't allow character to become secondary. Don't allow a person's character to become secondary. It should be the first thing that you see. Because men especially will, they got this going on. They got a couple kids, but she's still fine. She got 2 or 3 jobs, but she's still wearing that dress. Let character be number one. Because there'll come a time when she can't fit in the dress anymore. Or he can't fit in his pants anymore. My zipper broke the other day. I thought it was a zipper. It wasn't a zipper, it was my stomach. Anyway. Make sure the character is number one. Yeah, so, because you know a tree by the fruit it bears. You'll find out who they are eventually. Sadly, we jump into a marriage and then find out. That's my closing point number 2. Go ahead, Ali.
I would say advice I would give is pray and ask God, is this what you need to do? Are you making the right decisions? Are you, going down that right road? And then something I've learned, that it's okay to be single. It's okay to be alone, so you can figure out what you want and what you need from that person that you're looking for.
Thank you. Go ahead, Elder Donna.
Well, I was never lonely, I will say that. I always had God and my children, and I also, people with children, you got to consider your kids when you're dating, about who you're going to have around your kids. So I was always curious about that. But seek God for who you actually, he will send the person and in my case, I think the person was right in front of me, but that's not who I was looking for. So I bypassed them. Seek God first, that's exactly, and again, in his timing, because his time is perfect.
Amen. Come on.
Well, first of all, I think you need to take care of yourself first.
That's right.
Be honest, keep yourself faithful,
It's good.
and my advice is to wait on the one that you need,
Amen.
because the Lord will send them to you.
Amen.
Amen.
But I've been in a relationship about 11 years. I'm engaged to Marty, y'all probably know.
All right now.
But we haven't got married, but he's always treated me well. He's been real good to me, and I try to do my best to be real good to him.
Amen. And they can't get married because he ain't leaving. You still got to come paint if you get married. Anything you want to add, or just advice? A piece of advice for single.
My advice is just to, of course, to pray and to wait. Timing is everything. I don't like to rush things. He knows I always say I have to just wait and feel the vibe. Just have
Gotta
to wait,
vibe it, babe.
feel the vibe. You have to just feel it. You'll know. You'll feel it when it's right. And just to love on yourself. I think that's really important. That's right. Yes.
Feel the vibe, love on yourself. No timing. Don't rush into something. Don't rush into something because your urges are saying rush. Don't rush. Elder Kareem, keep it clean. All right. Your piece of advice. Stay off the sites. No, go ahead.
My advice is let God build you to the husband or the wife that you called to be. Let God build you. It's gonna take time. You will be impatient, but let God build you. Because trust me, once you build, he will bring you to the person that you need to be with.
Amen. Let God build you.
It's really kind of hard to add to what everybody's already said, you know, to stay God focused, you know, and to me, staying God focused, let God build your inner self. Find who you are before you try to give yourself to someone else.
Yeah, that's right.
Good. Very good.
Yes, amen.
You got no advice, Ken?
Come on, Cam.
Oh, y'all said everything.
Oh,
There you go.
I can't go behind him.
Thank you.
Anyway, with my illness, I sometimes I lose my thought pattern.
It's all right.
Let me say one thing. Most of the families and everybody in here should have a Bible. Or,
Yes.
okay, most Bibles have a reference.
Sure.
Everything that you need to make life
This is good.
it's in this, right?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
When you go to those references in the back of your Bible, whatever part it is, everything that you need to know,
Yes.
refer to it. I just started again because my reading is off. Now, I mean, I used to teach school. I taught school
Sure.
years. And learning how to read all over again,
Uh-huh.
okay?
Wow.
And stay focused. Now, we go back to that reference. Everything that you need to know about relationships, how to treat one another.
That's the truth.
That person that
It's
you
there.
are with is in the
It's
Bible, and people don't use the Bible when they're going through.
That's good.
Okay? That's what I'm going to recommend. Use that reference. You
Yes.
know, and it'll save you a lot of
Yes.
pain.
Right.
That's true.
Thank you. Come on. I'm gonna have you write 3 things down then, Brother Wade, if you'll come and just claim something solid. We'll close from up here. Number 1, it's already been said, singles, write this down. Don't compromise. Don't compromise who God is and what your standards are biblically for something, for what we say, a quickie. Don't do it. Don't do it. Number 2, Single people, don't think getting married is going to solve all your problems. Because marriage is a magnifier. Once you get married, you'll find out what your issues are, because he or she is going to tell you. Put your clothes in the hamper, Joker. Clean up the dog hair before I get home. Marriage is a magnifier, so you got to be straight with yourself before you can bring that to somebody else. Number 3, ask advice from the right people.
That's right.
If you are single, why are you asking other single people about how to get married? Find a relationship of somebody that's healthy. Ask them. Very, very rarely do I, when I was single, would I talk to people about marriage stuff because I was divorced. I could give you a Bible, but I can tell you what not to do. So I would send people to Pastor Tim and First Lady because they've made it for almost 50 years in a marriage. But ask for advice from the right people. Don't compromise. Don't think marriage is going to solve all your problems, and ask for the right advice. Pastor Tim, I'm going to ask you, if you will, to grab a mic. I think you got something you want to add, and then just pray us, as the old saints say, pray us out. But here's what we're going to do. Not next Sunday because it's Easter, but the Sunday after, I'm going to preach a message to wrap up this portion of tough stuff about being single. Because I want to break down what the word alone means, because we don't really know what it means in the Greek. Doesn't mean what we think it means. But can you give this panel a round of applause for
Yes, that's important. Yes. Wonderful.
Pastor Tim to close us out?
Wonderful. And I will pray. But let me give you, I take notes, and y'all should too, and y'all should keep a journal. You should keep a journal of your life. It is very important. As dull as it may seem, like sometimes I'll put, this was a boring day. Brenda was wonderful, and then Brenda wasn't, so, and then Tim. But let me tell you something, singles and everybody else. Represent yourself well. Yes. Wherever you go. Unless I'm working at this church, even if I'm going to Roses, I try to look for people to look at me and I'm representing myself well. I look fine today. Come on, give me a round of applause. I'm not saying you have to dress up. Square your shoulders back. Act like you're somebody. Yes. You're as good as the governor, God knows, the governor of this state. Yes. Represent yourself well. Yes. For those of you that are in a mess right now out in the congregation, and we've all been there, God is for your good outcome. Yes. He's not trying to beat you up with anything that you thought was negative. Except you can't watch porno. Listen to me. If you fail, get up quick. Yes. Right. Did you hear what I said? Get up quick. Right. God's not trying to beat you up. He's trying to get you up. Yes. You don't have to be the party animal either. My granddaughters ask me questions. I like they're very candid. They said, why doesn't Dad and, I won't tell you which dad, why doesn't he go out with so many friends? Well, I'll tell you why. I said, do you think my sons would not be the life of any party? Are you serious with their personality? They choose who they want to party with. They're careful because sooner or later, you are who you hang around with. That's right. You are who you hang around with. Everything is a learning experience, isn't it, Brother Cameron? And you gave some great word. It's in the Bible. Look up at Solomon. He was a horny hot dog. But he also gave some of the greatest advice. The wisest man that ever lived. Lastly, go home and look up Being Single or Dating or Married by R.A. Vernon. If this is okay, Pastor Steve. Mega Church in Cleveland, Ohio. Look up R.A. Vernon, and he deals direct with what we just talked about, and you all were so very candid, and you're very poised, and you handle yourselves very well, and that's very important. But everything, you tied it up. It really is in the book. Would you stand with me? It's in the book. Married a long time. You have to apologize a lot. If you're an Adams, at least.